All right, let us say hello to Jason House, the CEO over at Iridium Sports, one of the deeper talent rosters in MMA right now. A lot of his fighters currently competing in the UFC, a lot of which are fighting this Saturday. And not only that, after this past Saturday, there's a UFC world champion in the stable. Jason, how are you, sir?
Yes, good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So let's start with this past Saturday because Brandon Moreno becomes the UFC flyweight champion, submits Deiveson Figueiredo in the third round. And in life, and I'm sure in fighter management, you always remember your first. And as much as you care about all of your athletes equally, this could not have happened to a more deserving person in Brandon Moreno. Like, what did that moment mean to you on Saturday when he became the champion?
Man, it was surreal at the time. You know, it's just 12 years of hard work, you know, on our side of the fence from a management standpoint, and just kind of going through, you know, just reminiscing everything we've been through with Brandon in 2 years, right? When we signed Brandon, he had just been released by the UFC. So, you know, getting him the LFA title fight, winning that fight, getting back into the UFC, running the gambit in a very, very tough flyweight division. It was just an accumulation of 2 years of hard work. You know, to see it come to fruition was amazing.
To see where this flyweight division was 2 years ago, and to see where it is now, like this division was gone for a cup of coffee, and then it never really fully went away. But they were talking about getting rid of this division. Now, if they got rid of it, they would have missed out on all these incredible moments, including this one on Saturday night. So, is it just kind of surreal to think about like where this division was a couple of years ago to where it is now, and now seeing Moreno with the title?
You have to give a lot of credit to McMaynard for everything that he's done in this division, because you're right. It was extinct. You know, it was on life support, really needing a second chance. And, you know, Mick, you know, thought he could, you know, revive the division, and he did. And I feel like the division right now is one of the most exciting, if not the most exciting division in the world right now. And just to kind of see this whole story unfold, it's just amazing to see a division that was going to be cut. You know, when we signed Brandon and then the division was kind of going to be gone, you're like, man, what do we do? Right. Where do we put him? What is the plan? How does he have a career in MMA at this point in time when there's not many organizations that have a flyweight division? You know, if you would have told me 2 years from now, I would be the flyweight champ of the world in the UFC. It's pretty amazing.
Brandon was he was exuding this swagger, this confidence all week. And even when I spoke with him back in May, he had no doubts he was going to beat Deiveson Figueiredo. In fact, he had no doubts he would go in there and stop Figueiredo. And you were around him more than most throughout the fight week. What did you see from him? Because his fellow fighters all saw it in him. If you went to like those little MyBookie reads, they're all picking Brandon to win just because of confidence he was exuding throughout the week.
You know, I felt like our process for this camp was just tremendous. I felt like we left no stone unturned. We really did a lot of studying of Figueiredo for this fight. You know, went back, rewatched the last fight numerous times. And I just felt like Moreno's process was so on point that when it came time to perform, the confidence was there. I felt like the first fight when I was backstage with Brandon, you know, he was singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. You know, he was real loose goose. You know, he has a very good ability to be in the moment. He doesn't let the moment consume him. And in this fight week, you nailed it on the head. That there was a look in his eye all week long. You knew that he was ready to go. You knew that he was prepared. And I think when your preparation is so spot on, there's no doubt, there's no fear, there's no, you know what you need to do to execute. And he did. I think from the minute the bell rang in the first round, you could tell that we were implementing our game plan right from the start.
Last thing on Brandon, it was I very rarely feel like the FOMO covering the sport. Like, man, I wish I was in that building. But Saturday, that was one of the more special moments I have ever seen covering this sport. He took the time to sort of take it all in before actually realizing what had just happened, and the crowd went nuts. And, you know, you being who you are and being around the sport and around the UFC so often, you've seen some big moments throughout your career. Where does that one rank? Not just for you as Brandon's manager, but as a guy who loves fighting and loves the UFC and loves fights. Like, where does that moment rank to you as in terms of like very memorable things that happened in the sport?
It's funny you said that. I told my father-in-law yesterday, I thought when I saw Dominic Cruz beat TJ Dillashaw, that layoff, I thought that was one of the most impressive things that I had witnessed in person as an MMA fan and being in the industry. I think Saturday night takes the cake. Just to see that moment, it was surreal. I mean, when Brandon won, I just broke down crying. I got to be honest. Like I was sitting next to his wife and my wife, and I just put my head in my hands, and just that relief, that it was done, that our work was, that we did it. And, then Ozzy from the UFC came and brought us into the cage. And I thought that post-fight speech was just amazing. It's really storybook. Everything he said was just so spot on.
Yeah, he nailed it all week long.
And yeah.
Eric Anders got a nice win. He gets back on track.
Yep.
Nice third round for him. What a debut for Terrence McKinney, man. Like the man's story is unbelievable. A true near tragedy to triumph story. Comes in and knocks out Matt Favola in 7 seconds. I know that's kind of a tough thing for you since Matt's one of your guys as well, but to see a guy like Terrence go in there and make that walk after all he's been through and just finish a fight like that. What was that moment like for you?
It's to see Terrence come through so much life adversity, to overcome it, the drugs and everything that he had going on in his life, to this moment was surreal to see him do that, and the hard part about this sport is you can see one athlete, have their moment in the sun while at the same time, Matt Favola, that was heartbreaking to see him go through that. And it's crazy, right? They both have worked so hard. They both probably deserve to win. Right. And that's what's could be frustrating at a time with the sport, right? You're like, oh my gosh, so it was a mix of emotions for me. But I think for me, just seeing Terrence overcome so much in his life and to get this moment, to make that walk to the octagon and perform like that, I was really happy for him and his family. I know how much he had been through. He took a tough loss to Sean Woodson on Contender Series, took a tough loss to Derek Minner on the regional scene. He was kind of at a crossroads in his career. You didn't know which way he was going to go. Rattled off 3 great wins, and then to come back here and make his UFC debut like that. We're so proud of him. He's such a great person, both inside and outside the cage. And I couldn't be happier for him and his family.
What were you thinking during the celebration? I mean, I spoke with him on Monday. Seems to be taking it in stride. Very good spirits. Yes. Felt like he was an idiot in doing that. But we've seen more egregious celebrations than that. But it kind of reminded me, and I don't know how much you play golf or anything, but like when you absolutely annihilate a ball off the tee and it makes that sound and the ball starts to fly up the center of the fairway and it just kind of slices into the trees, that ooh, kind of thing. Like, what's going through your mind when you see him come up hobbling like that?
I was really nervous. I was like, man, it kind of reminded me of the Johnny Walker situation. You're like, oh shoot, I hope our celebration just didn't cause an injury. Because I want him to get back in there. I want him to compete again, soon and keep this momentum going. And I was really concerned for his knee, but it appears that maybe it's not as bad as we initially thought. We'll know more once we get the MRI results back and, see a doctor. But I'm praying it's nothing that's going to hold him out for too long.
That was this past Saturday. This Saturday, I believe 8 of your fighters will be competing at UFC Vegas 29, including the Korean Zombie in the main event against Dan Ige. I spoke with him last week alongside the great Eddie Chai, and he told me he took the loss to Brian Ortega pretty hard and even briefly pondered retiring from the sport. So I'm curious, were you aware of that? And what is that like in your position, having a guy sort of look in the mirror, kind of stare at that fork in the road and decide what road do I need to travel here?
Yes, I was aware of it. And I feel anytime you suffer a tough loss in this sport, there needs to be a period of reflection. And I've learned that the most healthiest way to handle that is just kind of let the fighter and our team handle it together, right? Just take the time, really digest all of these thoughts and emotions. The sport is such an emotional roller coaster. It can make you have the highest highs and it can make you feel the lowest lows. And I think it's good to process all of those emotions. Take some time before you make a hasty decision. Zombie's a competitor. He's one of the greatest competitors I think the sport's ever seen. I think every fight but one in the UFC, he's bonused. And I knew he would be back. Fighting is inside of him. I know he loves to fight and compete. And I just think he needed some time to really analyze everything that happened in that fight and make the adjustment.
I watched him put Leonard Garcia in that twister on loop before you jumped on here. But
yes,
he's back in the States 2-0 when he does camps at Fight Ready, and he's got a tough task ahead of him in Dan Ige. What are you expecting to see from him on Saturday?
I definitely felt like being able to have camp in Arizona this time didn't make a big difference. Having the training partners, the whole coaching staff there, and all the amenities that come in Arizona, I truly feel like you're going to see a very sharp and focused Korean Zombie on Saturday night. Dan Ige is a tough opponent. I love Dan to death, and I think it's going to be a great fight.
You also have Marlon Vera. He's rematching Davey Grant. And I know he's sort of one of the OGs of Iridium Sports. You guys have a very close relationship. He had that career-changing night against Sean O'Malley. Then he gets a fight with freaking Jose Aldo, which was a very big deal. But the thing I've always admired about Chito Vera is this guy is like the true definition of a fighter. He just says, yes, if that's who I'm fighting, that's who I'm fighting, I'm in. What has it been like watching Marlon kind of go through those highs and lows that you were talking about and just keep the same attitude consistently?
Man, Chito's very close to home for me, and it's funny because after that Davey Grant fight, he didn't go back home to Ecuador. He came with me back to America, lived with me, and kind of started this ascent to the top that he's had and, finding good training out here and really evolving and defining himself as the fighter he is today. So I'm very excited to see him have this rematch with Davey Grant. Chito, for me, when I think of Chito, I sometimes like it's not who's good, it's who's left. Chito's there every day. Every day he works his ass off. Every day he gives his best. And I think what he maybe it's for me, it's his heart. It's his testicular fortitude. It's his toughness. He's so durable. And, I think he's so focused right now with, being in Costa Mesa, being with his family. I really feel like we're going to see the best Chito Vera on Saturday night. This camp has gone really smooth.
I want to ask you about Julian Erosa, and I've said this on our channel many times. I believe Julian Erosa is the most unheralded story in the UFC right now, like a true comeback guy.
By far.
Had a rough go in his last stint with the company, and the UFC always sort of saw something in him, even at his some of his worst moments. And although he was released, he told me that after conversation with you, like the door was never fully closed for him. And now he's got 2 straight finishes, got another tough fight on Saturday. That guy's got alligator blood, does he not?
When we first moved to Vegas, we went out to dinner, me, him, his wife, and my wife. And I got to be honest, at the time, I'm like, man, I don't know what we're going to do. We've had a couple stints in the UFC. We've done the Ultimate Fighter. We've done Contenders. PFL's not having a season. I mean, did we try to go to Bellator? I don't know what to do. And so we had a great dinner, and I remember getting in the car with my wife and thinking like, God, I love Julian Erosa. Like, God, he just does everything right. He was riding his bike to and from the gym every day. I think it was like 20 miles. He was cutting weight every Friday as if he had a fight to make sure his weight was low. He was doing everything right with no hope in sight. There was no light at the end of the tunnel. There was the UFC wasn't even on the radar at this point. And then, all these fall offs are happening on the Las Vegas events, post COVID, everything's happening. And I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, this might happen. And the Sean Woodson fight, I think there was a couple people ahead of us to get that fight. And like something happened, like they tested positive or couldn't get the medicals. All of a sudden it was just falling in line. And there was Julian on weight, medicals done, training every day, training in a garage, training at a gym, training wherever he could. Man, I cannot say enough good things about Julian Erosa because he did everything right. And when the opportunity came, he was more than ready for it. And man, I'm with you. It's got to be one of the best stories in MMA right now. I think that's another definition of it's not who's good, it's who's left, right? Like he just kept coming. And to see him on the brink of a 3-fight win streak is unbelievable to me.
You got 5 others on this one. You got Joaquim Silva, Alexa Kammer, Rocky Martinez, Chaos Williams. That fight with Matthew Semmelsberger is absolutely ridiculous. I'm so excited for that one. And then Silva's opponent, Ricky, don't call me Rick Glenn. Ricky Glenn? Like, what did you think of the more youthful first name change? Ricky Glenn. I thought that was the greatest thing ever.
I love it. I love Rick. I think Ricky's even cooler. I love his walkouts. I love the mustache. I love it all. And, Rick has been one of the most exciting guys in MMA for a long time. His fight with Gavin Tucker was amazing. And I'm really excited for him to get back in there. He just had a child. with his wife. So I'm excited for him to come back from some injuries and some layoffs and put on a good show.
A couple more things, Jason. As a manager, you always want to do what's best for the fighters. You want to defend them. You want to protect them. That is your job. And there are certainly a lot of challenges in your role. But I'm curious about your thoughts regarding the relationship between managers and the media. There you are. Because obviously this can be a wild space. So for you personally, how would you describe your relationship with the media and what can be done to improve that relationship across the board?
I mean, I think I have a pretty good relationship with the media. I think you guys do a great job of covering our sport and, giving our athletes the opportunity and platform to get their name out there more and to promote their fights. I've always had a lot of respect and love for the media in that aspect. So, like I said, I'm grateful. We have Ed Cap on our staff, and I think he's the man. I know Ed does a phenomenal job of really building those relationships for our athletes early. I think that's really important that our young athletes start to give interviews and work with the media at a young age, because you know how it goes. You can go from maybe giving a few interviews a fight, and then you're on the Brandon Moreno tour right now where his phone hasn't stopped ringing for 3 days. Right. So yeah, I think it kind of is just like anything else, right? It's training, it's developing that rapport and relationship and the ability to promote fights through the media and on all of the great outlets that our sport has.
What would you say is your biggest challenge in your role?
As a manager, I would say that the biggest challenge is that to stay level-headed in times of adversity with the guys. You love them so much, it's hard not to be emotional, right? You love your guys. You're in the trenches with them. When adversity hits, you're in their corner to stay rational, right? Just to have the solutions to whatever may come their way. And man, I like every Saturday is a roller coaster of emotions for me. You love those boys and girls so much. They do so. The sport's amazing, but again, like I said earlier, it has the highest highs and lowest lows. One fight, you're like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. Next fight, you're just gutted. You're sitting in the locker room, just devastated. I think it's hard sometimes, going through those highs and lows. With the media, man, I don't really know. Again, like I'm lucky. Ed really handles all of that, So he's the best in that aspect. I think the only time I've ever kind of had a little feeling towards the media was kind of during the whole COVID situation. I felt like they were very critical of promotions trying to find a way to get back into business. And I just felt like, our industry, our country, we needed trailblazers. We needed people to be looking for solutions, to try to find plans, to implement protocols that could provide a safe environment for people to work, And I just felt like maybe sometimes the media is a little critical. We're a little critical of Dana and some other organizations that, it's like, man, we need to find a way to make this work, And I think that was it. But I mean, I see both sides of the coin. We didn't know how dangerous COVID was going to be. We didn't know, the extent of the lives that it was going to take. And, it's kind of a balancing act in that aspect. Right. And so trying to figure out a way to open up society and get back to work, but at the same time, protecting our people and our society. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's kind of the double-edged sword, because you want
100%.
The fights. You want the fights to happen, but at the same time, like, there's questions that we didn't really necessarily have the answers to, but then just seeing it kind of play out, we're like, okay, yes. I guess we really did need them.
And it's not even like you want fights to happen. You need to find a way for people to earn a living through this pandemic, right? Like There has to be a solution, right? But the only way you're going to find a solution is if you go and stick your neck out. So it's kind of a catch-22 there a little bit. Yes, we want to be very safe. Yes, we want to protect everyone, especially the people that are maybe more susceptible to getting COVID and having some serious effects from it. But I also felt like, man, we need to find also a way to get our country and our nation back on its feet as well. So it's kind of that, again, double-edged sword.
Yeah, scary time, man. It was a very interesting year. It looks like we're on the other end, which is a good thing. But
yeah.
Last thing, like we mentioned, this big stable of fighters. I don't even know how the hell you sleep these days, Jason, but a lot in the UFC, some over in Bellator, some in LFA, PFL, other notable organizations. And obviously in your spot, you want to see everyone get to where they want to go. But who do you think's that next guy or gal? Like who is the next Terrence McKinney? Who is the next fighter destined to take that next step?
And I really feel like this year's class is one of the best we've had. Just top of my head, Mo Miller out of Cleveland, Ohio. I think he's going to be the next big deal. I really believe in him and seeing what he does. I think Josh Quinlan out of Las Vegas is another hammer that's coming up the ranks. We have quite a few. David Onama out of James Krause's gym, I think, is another stud. I mean, the list goes on. I know I'm forgetting some names. I know, Brandon Moreno's gym has a couple hammers down there that I think are going to be really, really good prospects coming up out of Innsbruck. One of them is Manuel Loco Torres, who just fought this past weekend at UWC. I mean, we really have a great class coming up, into this year's contenders, and maybe even, go straight into the UFC. Obviously, Brian Battle having success, and Andre Petrosky and Vince Murdoch on Tough. We have quite a few guys there, so I mean, there's a lot of good people coming up in the ranks right now that I'm very excited to see.
Jason, I appreciate the time, man. The business never stops. It continues on. Another big night on Saturday, and congratulations on a big night for you and the team this past Saturday with Brandon, and continued success. All the best to you and all the fighters competing this weekend, man.
Thank you so much.